Sign it, Daniel.
You spent 22 years fixing other people's problems. Tonight, Claire finally fixed hers. One signature, and everyone walks away with dignity. You brought him here?
I chose a future, you chose to stay small.
No.
Claire's hand struck my face before the word had finished leaving my mouth. My bronze lapel pin broke loose, hit the floor, and spun beneath the table. Her brother crushed it under his shoe. "There," he said. "Now nothing from your old life has to follow her." Across the ballroom, Evelyn Brooks rose so quickly her chair fell backward. "Take your foot off that pin." Victor's smile disappeared. Claire stared at Evelyn. "Why?" The ballroom doors locked with a heavy, mechanical click. Then the projection screen began lowering behind my birthday cake. I had not touched the controls, and on that screen appeared my signature on a document I had never seen. For a moment, nobody in that ballroom breathed. 200 guests stared at a 10-foot image of my own handwriting. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 52, and for 22 of those years, I've been Director of Facilities at the Harbor Crown Hotel. To Claire's family, that title meant one thing: the man who fixes the air conditioning. They never asked what else the job meant. That night, it nearly cost me everything. The document was titled Facilities Transfer Certification. Below the seal, in blue ink, my signature, certifying all building systems and pension assets cleared for sale to Hale Meridian Capital. My cheeks still burned from Claire's hand, but the cold in my chest had nothing to do with the slap. "That is my signature," I said, "but I never saw that page in my life." Victor set down his glass with the patience of a man who had rehearsed this moment. "Daniel, you signed it 6 weeks ago, in front of witnesses." "I signed an inspection log that night, not a sale certification." And then my wife of 19 years turned to the room and said the words that changed everything. "I watched him sign the folder." Not the page, the folder. I was too stunned to catch it then. Later, that one word would matter more than anything else spoken in that ballroom. Victor spread his hands. He had the document, a notary stamp, board members at the good tables, and my own wife as a witness, while her divorce papers made anything I said sound like bitterness. While the room murmured, Evelyn Brooks knelt beside my table. 69, honorary chairwoman of Harbor Crown. She picked up my crushed bronze pin, turned it over, and stared at the number engraved on the back. 5. She whispered, "Your father never told you what this was?" "He said it opened doors." Her eyes came up to mine. Not pity, recognition. It was never meant for a door. Before she could say another word, Victor's voice cut across the ballroom. "Turn that screen off. We have an evening to get through." The screen went dark, but its question stayed lit. Who had put my signature on that page? And why did an old woman look at my father's broken pen like the most dangerous object in the room? Victor tapped his glass and smiled at the guests the way a surgeon smiles before bad news. "Friends, forgive the drama. Since we're all here, let me be transparent. Tonight's celebration is also a private investor reception. At 9:30, the Board of Harbor Crown will vote on the sale of this property to Hale Meridian Capital. This hotel carries debt. Its renovations are a decade overdue. Its pension obligations are, frankly, unsustainable. Hale Meridian intends to preserve this building's legacy responsibly. I finally understood the shape of the evening. None of it was random. The divorce had been timed to land minutes before the vote, so any objection from me would sound like a wounded man lashing out. Claire stepped forward, her voice steady in a way that hurt worse than shouting. Daniel has blocked every modernization proposal for 6 years. He votes no on everything. He decides alone and calls it protecting me. She turned to the guests. Ask him when he last explained a single decision to his own wife. I'll be honest, because this story doesn't work if I'm not. She wasn't entirely wrong. Somewhere around year 12, I had stopped explaining myself. I called silence protection. It was a door I closed 1 inch a year until my own wife stood on the other side of it, listening to a stranger who was happy to explain everything. That was my flaw. It comes back to collect. Victor gestured toward the back of the room, and 2 security officers appeared beside me. Given the dispute over documents, the board is suspending Mr. Mercer's system access pending review. Daniel, your master keycard, please. 22 years of keys, handed over on a dessert plate at my own birthday party. Claire's brother took a photo. As security walked away, Evelyn caught my sleeve. That pin belonged to one of 5 employee trustees. 5, Daniel. Your father was Evelyn. Victor's voice, warm as a hand on the throat. We're on a schedule. The vote is at 9:30. The ballroom clock read 8:46. 44 minutes to prove I hadn't signed away 83 pensions, with no keycard, no access, and no idea what my father's broken pin had to do with any of it. I found Claire near the service door, away from her family. Delay the vote, I said. 1 hour. Let someone verify that certification. If it's real, you lose nothing. And if it's fake, Victor loses everything. That's what you want. I want 83 people not to lose their retirement because of a page with my name on it. For 1 second, I saw her waver. Then Victor's assistant appeared with a leather folder, and Claire's face closed like a gate. Victor offered me the property division, she said quietly. My own budget. My own decisions. Do you understand what that means after 19 years of being told everything is handled? Claire, did you actually see me sign that certification? She took the folder from the assistant, opened it, and signed a witness declaration stating that she had personally observed me sign the original document packet. That was her first wrong choice. Not the divorce papers. This. A divorce ends a marriage. That signature tied her, legally and publicly, to Victor's transaction. If the document was a forgery, she had just authenticated it. You'll land on your feet, Daniel. You always do. You just never go anywhere. She walked back toward the lights, leaving me with the question that would drive the rest of my night. Did my wife knowingly authenticate a forgery, or did Victor fool her too? Without my key card, I couldn't pull a single record. But Victor had made one mistake. He had taken my keys, not my memory. I closed my eyes and went back 6 weeks, to the night of the storm. Rain had torn flashing off the roof, water in the service stairwell. I'd been on the mezzanine past 9 when Victor appeared. Unusual, because owners' representatives don't visit leaking stairwells. Carrying an emergency inspection folder. Claire was with him, managing an event that night. Victor said the insurance carrier needed a signed work authorization before crews could proceed. Routine. I'd signed 1,000 of them. I signed the last page and handed it back. One detail surfaced now, sharp as glass. The folder had a pale blue divider separating the signature page from the rest. And when the certification filled the screen, a thin, pale blue edge showed at the margin of the scanned page. Same divider, same folder. A different document stacked on top. They hadn't forged my signature. They had harvested it. A signed page from a real authorization, slipped behind a new cover sheet. My hand, their words. And the building gave me a small mercy. Rosa from Banquets pressed a carbon copy into my hand, the original work authorization from my office mail tray. Same date, same signature position, different title. Emergency Roof Repair Authorization. For about 90 seconds, I thought I had won. Then I turned the page over. On the back, in handwriting that looked unsettlingly like mine, approved for transfer after repairs. I carried the copy to the head table. A half weapon beats empty hands. Victor was fast. So Mr. Mercer produces a second document, he announced, conveniently kept in his own office, bearing his own signature and a handwritten note approving the transfer. He held it up. First he denies the signature. Now he denies his handwriting. Which is it, Daniel? That note is not mine. Of course not. Nothing is ever yours, except, apparently, the only set of keys to every room where these documents were kept. I watched the room turn, shoulders angling away, eyes finding the tablecloth. 2 minutes earlier, I'd held proof of a paid substitution. Now I was a bitter husband with a drawer full of suspicious paper. Whoever wrote that note had known I'd eventually find the carbon copy. They had poisoned my evidence in advance. And that foresight scared me more than the forgery itself. Since documents were beating me, I read the deal itself. The sales summary was cycling on the corner display. Glossy pages, confident numbers. Most people saw a hotel valuation. I saw something else. Because for 22 years, my job had been the physical truth of this property. The numbers weren't valuing a hotel operation at all. The appraisal weight sat on the air rights above the North Tower and the adjacent service lots. You don't pay a premium for air rights to run a hotel. You pay it to demolish and build towers. I said it to the whole room. This isn't a purchase. It's a teardown. Victor, what happens to the staff after 18 months? He pivoted beautifully. Legacy, stewardship, market conditions. Evelyn Brooks rose for the second time that night. Answer his question, Mr. Hale. What happens to the employees? Under her stare, Victor finally conceded it in the soft language of his trade. Positions would be consolidated. Pension obligations would be restructured. Staff housing would transition. A ripple went through the banquet staff along the back wall. Restructured. Every one of them knew that word. My father heard it in a factory office 30 years ago. 2 years before his pension vanished, and 5 before it finished killing him. I watched a strong man fold up like an emptied coat. That's the wound I carry, And that's why I stayed at Harbor Crown. A building is only worth saving if the people inside it matter. Claire's voice cut through the murmur. This hotel is dying, Daniel. It's dying because people like you preserve everything until nothing can grow. Growth that erases the people who built it isn't growth, I said. It's demolition with better lighting. For the first time all night, her family wasn't laughing. But sympathy is not evidence, and one question still had no answer. Victor had the board votes and the money. So why did he need my signature at all? Evelyn answered it. She took the microphone no one had offered her. Harbor Crown, she explained, carried an unusual covenant in its title. Any sale that restructured employee benefits required certification from the sitting facilities director, a sworn statement that deferred repairs hid no liabilities and that the building met transfer standards. Without that certification, Evelyn said, looking directly at Victor, no buyer can close at a distressed valuation. The price roughly doubles. Mr. Hale doesn't need Daniel's signature as a formality. He needs it as a discount. My name wasn't decoration on that document. It was $90 million of leverage. And a discount built on fraud has a time stamp. I asked Marcus Reed to bring the certification back on screen. Marcus ran the ballroom's audio, lighting, and projection, a quiet man who'd worked beside me for 11 years. He hesitated, glanced at Victor, then put the document up. I pointed at the notary block. Look at the time. Notarized at 10:42 p.m., the night of the storm. I left this building at 9:18 that night. The front drive camera will show my car. Murmurs, real ones this time. Marcus leaned into his console mic, barely above a whisper. The event storage from that week still exists. I can pull the front drive footage. The room shifted toward me, the first honest wind at my back all night. Victor felt it too. He turned, calm as ever, to my wife. Claire, could Daniel have come back that night? Through the service entrance, perhaps? Claire had driven home with me that night. She knew exactly where I was at 10:42, asleep beside her. She had a second chance to tell one small, true thing. She looked at Victor's assistant, holding a folder embossed Property Division, Transition Plan. Then she looked at me. He had access to every door in this building, she said. He always has. Not a lie, exactly. Something worse. A true sentence built to keep a false one alive. Her second choice. And this time I understood she wasn't being fooled. She was protecting the future she had chained to Victor's wrist. Marcus's footage came up. Timestamp 9:17 p.m. My car pulling out of the front drive, rain streaking the lens. Proof, 10 feet tall. The room began to turn, and Victor smiled at the screen like a man welcoming an old friend. Since we're reviewing footage, he said, show them what Daniel did at 10:31. The screen changed to a different camera. Service corridor, East Wing. Timestamp 10:31 p.m. A man walked into frame. He wore a Navy maintenance jacket. My jacket, or one identical to it. My winter cap, clipped to the chest pocket, an access badge with my photo on it. His face never turned toward the camera. Not once in 40 seconds. He moved down the corridor toward the document room and out of frame. The ballroom went very quiet. That badge was retired 8 months ago, I said. It shouldn't open anything. "And yet," Victor said gently, "you never reported it missing. Did you, Daniel?" I hadn't, because I hadn't known it was missing, and Claire, in her pastel pink dress, supplied the final nail without being asked. "He kept his old badges in his desk drawer," she said. "The unlocked one. I told him for years to clean it out." She wasn't wrong. That drawer existed. Half the truth, deployed at the right moment, does more damage than any lie. But while the room turned against me again, I was watching the footage on its second loop, and I saw what everyone else missed. The man in my jacket walked with a slight drag in his right leg, a hitch every third step. I don't walk like that. Anyone who'd watched me cross a room in 22 years knew it. And something about that gait scratched at my memory. Familiar, recent, just out of reach. Who had my uniform? Who had my badge? And whose leg was I looking at? I never got to chase the thought because Evelyn Brooks decided the room had waited long enough. She stood beside me at the head table and held up my broken bronze pin so the light caught the worn edges. 23 years ago, she said, this hotel was 11 days from bankruptcy. What saved it was not an investor. She turned the pin over, showing the engraved number. It was 5 employees. They emptied their savings and worked without wages for 7 months. A head housekeeper, a night engineer, a banquet captain, myself, and the maintenance chief, Samuel Mercer. My father's name in that ballroom landed on me like weather. In return, the owner wrote 5 founder protection votes into the covenant, 5 pins, 5 keys. Each carries the power to pause any transfer of this property for 72 hours. She looked at me. 4 died with their holders or were surrendered. 1 was inherited. Number 5. The room stared at the crushed pin, the cheap old thing Claire had asked me not to wear tonight. "Why didn't he know?" someone asked. "Because Samuel died before the paperwork found his son," Evelyn said. "The vote transfers by inheritance. It is waited in the Covenant Registry 11 years for Daniel Mercer to claim it." Then she told me the cost, plainly, in front of everyone. "The vote is not free, Daniel. To activate founder protection, the holder must surrender any personal payout connected to the transaction. Every dollar, irrevocably. Your position entitles you to a transition settlement from this sale, around $310,000. Invoke the vote, and you waive it forever. And the vote only pauses the sale, 72 hours. It cannot cancel anything without proof of fraud." I stood there doing the math a man does at 52. $310,000 against a divorce I hadn't seen coming, legal fees, and a job stripped from me an hour ago. My father used to polish this pin with a shirt cuff on Sunday nights. I asked him once why he bothered. It wasn't gold. It wasn't worth anything. He said, "Some keys don't open what belongs to you. They protect what belongs to everyone." I was 11. I thought he was talking about doors. I took the pin from Evelyn's hand, walked to the head table, moved my birthday cake aside, and set the broken pin in the center of the white tablecloth where 200 people could see it. "I'm Samuel Mercer's son," I said. "I claim founder vote number 5, and I invoke it." Evelyn produced the waiver herself. She had carried the covenant documents to this party, which told me she had suspected something all along. $310,000, 4 signatures worth of gone. I signed it. This time, every line on that page was mine. The transfer of Harbor Crown, Evelyn announced, is paused for 72 hours under founder protection, effective now. You could hear the evening crack. Investors reached for phones. A line cook I'd known 15 years put his fist against his mouth. And Claire stared at the waiver with an expression I hadn't seen in years. Doubt. Not of me. Of the story she'd been sold. Small men do not set $300,000 on fire for other people's pensions. For the first time that night, I had the room. The vote was paused. The timeline was mine. "Marcus," I said, "the corridor footage. There's a secondary camera angle. Put it up, full resolution. Let's see his face." Marcus nodded. The projection screen hummed and began lowering behind my birthday cake. 200 people leaned forward to watch Victor Hale lose. That is what a false summit feels like. What happened next took 11 minutes to destroy everything I had just built. Marcus's voice came over the console mic, small and wrong. "It's not here." He checked again, then a third time, hands starting to shake. The event archive, the entire week of the storm, had been remotely overwritten with blank data, time-stamped 40 minutes ago. While I stood in this ballroom with no keycard and no access. Victor didn't gloat. He grieved. That was the terrifying thing about the man. "This is what I feared," he said softly, like a doctor delivering a diagnosis. "A man facing divorce. A man who knows every camera and server in this building. Who produced a convenient carbon copy from his own office. Who invoked a covenant clause no one alive remembered. No one except him. And now, the moment footage might have shown us something definitive. The archive is destroyed." He turned to me, almost kind. "Daniel, who else could have done that?" "You took my access 2 hours ago." "We took a key card. 22 years of backdoors don't fit on a key card." Then security came through the doors carrying an evidence bag, a portable drive found taped inside the air vent of my former office. They plugged it into the console. On the screen, draft versions of the forged certification. My signature at different sizes. The pale blue divider scanned 12 ways. A workshop for building the exact fraud I'd spent the night claiming existed. The drive didn't disprove the forgery. It reassigned it. The certification was fake, and here was proof the faker was me. "Marcus," I said, "tell them. You saw the export request for that archive. Tell them who—" Marcus looked at me from the console, and I watched a good man drown in front of 200 people. I learned later what Victor had murmured to him, that Hale Meridian would soon decide which staff positions survived. All I saw was Marcus's mouth open, close, and produce, "I can't confirm who requested the export." Not a lie, just a door quietly shutting. My last ally gone. And Victor wasn't finished. He nodded to his assistant, who produced one more document for the screen, an archive deletion authorization executed 3 weeks ago through the events department. Signed, Claire Mercer. Claire went white, and for one raw second I recognized the trap she was standing in, because it was mine. Her signature, harvested on routine paperwork, repurposed into a weapon. Victor had done to her exactly what he'd done to me. She had one exit. I don't know what I signed. I don't trust any of these documents. 5 seconds of uncertainty, and Victor's paper kingdom wobbled. Victor spoke first, gently. Claire, did your husband handle the data systems, or did you? Claire looked at the screen, at her family, at the folder marked Property Division, and she chose. Daniel handled the systems, she said. I trusted what he put in front of me. Her third wrong choice. She took the trap Victor had built for her and set it down on my chest, in public, to save herself. After that, it went quickly. Victor moved that the board treat the founder vote as invoked in bad faith. Evelyn fought, but without credible evidence of third-party fraud, the board could override my 72 hours within the hour. The last thing I heard as security walked me out of my own birthday party was Claire's mother's voice, not even lowered. Well, now we know what he really was. The service corridor was cold and smelled like wet concrete. I took inventory because a maintenance man always takes inventory. Job, gone. Access, gone. Witness, gone. Credibility, gone. Wife, worse than gone, testifying. And the founder vote I'd paid $310,000 for was 50 minutes from being overridden as fraud. Every method I'd tried, documents, footage, records, testimony, Victor had gotten there first. He hadn't beaten my evidence. He had beaten evidence itself. Everything digital, everything on paper, everything spoken by a frightened human being, he could rewrite. I'd like to tell you I rallied immediately. I didn't. I sat on a supply crate under a work light, 11 years old again, watching my father come home with a cardboard box, telling my mother it would be fine in a voice that already knew it wouldn't. Silence hadn't protected him. It hadn't protected me. All that quiet dignity had delivered me here, a crate in a hallway, listening to my future being voted away through a wall. And then my hand found the broken pin in my pocket, felt the worn edges of the key, and something my father said came back to me differently than it ever had. Some keys don't open what belongs to you. I'd spent the whole night fighting on Victor's terrain. Servers, archives, signatures, things that could be overwritten. But I had one witness Victor couldn't threaten, couldn't buy, and couldn't edit. The building. 22 years I had listened to this hotel the way a doctor listens to a heart. Every system wrote its own diary, in metal and pressure and current, in cabinets that never touched the network. Victor could rewrite what people saw. He could not rewrite what the building had felt. So I stopped asking who edited the footage. New question. Who physically stood in the document room at 10:31? A body in a room leaves marks a server never sees. Start with the anomaly. Why had the man in my jacket used the East Service Corridor at all? The document room sits on the secured mezzanine, and from that corridor the only way up is the old freight elevator. 1974, hydraulic, older than the building network itself. Its logs lived on a local memory module inside a locked cabinet in the machine room. Victor Hale could delete every server in the state. He could not delete a steel box he didn't know existed. But I couldn't reach it alone. The machine room needed an engineering key and a man with clearance. It needed Marcus. I found him at the loading bay, sitting on the tailgate of the AV truck, staring at nothing. He saw me coming, and his shoulders went up around his ears. "Daniel, I can't." 22 people, I said. "That's what he told you, isn't it? Your whole department, plus banquets. Help me, and they're gone." He looked at his hands. 22 families, Daniel." I sat down next to him. I didn't shame him because I had been him for 22 years. "I spent my whole life telling myself silence protected people," I said. "Tonight, I finally learned what silence actually protects. The man holding the thread. Every time. Victor doesn't need your loyalty, Marcus. He only needs your quiet. Same as he needed mine. If we do nothing," I said, "those jobs are gone in 18 months anyway, with the pensions." You heard him. Restructured. The only version of tonight where your people survive is the one where we prove what he did. I can't promise we win. I can promise you won't stand alone." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into the truck, pulled out his work keys, and stood up. "The freight elevator cabinet," he said. "You'll need a second set of hands. That panel sticks." Walking back, I didn't use the staff corridors, though I knew 6 ways in. I went through the front entrance, past Victor's posted officers in full view. "You can keep my keys," I told them. "You cannot keep me from asking questions in a room where my name is being used." Nobody stopped us. The machine room hadn't changed in 22 years. Hydraulic oil, ticking relays. Marcus held the light. I pulled the panel. It stuck, like he said. And there it was, the local log module. Every trip recorded by load sensor and timestamp, untouched by any network Victor had poisoned. I scrolled to the night of the storm. 10:29 p.m., 1 passenger ascending to the mezzanine. Adjusted load, 187 pounds. 10:47 p.m., same load, descending. Access method, equipment key override. No other mezzanine trips within 3 hours. There he was, the man in my jacket, weighed by a machine that had no opinion about my divorce. And the number nearly broke me. I had a suspect. I'd finally placed that right leg drag. The flooring contractor who'd recarpeted the mezzanine in the spring, walking off a knee operation, whose company belonged to Victor's brother-in-law. Motive, access, gate. A clean theory. The contractor weighs 260 pounds if he weighs an ounce. The clue didn't fit the man. And upstairs, Victor was making sure it wouldn't matter. Marcus's radio told us Hale Meridian would sue me personally for defamation. Then the masterstroke. A cash retention bonus for every employee, payable only if the sale closed tonight. Fear and money are tangible. Truth was still hiding in a steel cabinet. 187, Marcus said. That could be half the people at that party. Victor's assistant, even. She's got that old ankle thing. She was at a museum dinner across town that night, photographed. I stared at the log. The equipment override, though. How many equipment keys exist? 3. Engineering, AV, and the one the owner's rep office requisitioned during the renovation talks. Victor's office held an equipment key. But Victor was a big man, 6'2", 200 pounds at least, not 187. And Victor didn't limp. I read the log entry again. and then I saw the one word I'd been sliding past for 10 minutes. Adjusted. Marcus, this elevator was recalibrated last week, wasn't it? Yeah, county inspection. I signed the tech in. The new controller auto-subtracts registered equipment, anything with a transponder tag. I felt the numbers rearrange themselves. If he rode up with the tagged steel document cart, the system subtracted the cart's weight, 26 pounds. 187 plus 26. 213 pounds. Victor Hale. But the limp, Marcus said. The guy in the footage wasn't limping. It came out almost as a laugh. The storm crews had that floor wet all night. I filed the slip hazard report myself. He was hauling a 100-pound cart across a wet floor, one-handed, keeping his face off camera. That drag isn't an injury. That's a man pulling a load. Victor Hale had put on my jacket and cap, clipped on my retired badge, and personally ridden that elevator to the document room while I slept beside my wife. No hired hands, no loose threads. He believed everyone could be bought, which meant no one could be trusted with the crime. But a weight and a timestamp prove a body, not an act. Victor would produce 4 consultants who weigh 213 pounds. We needed his hands, his face, what he did inside that room. We needed footage, and every camera archive in the building was overwritten. Marcus went very still. Then he said quietly, "Not everyone." He explained it the way technicians explain miracles, apologetically. The stage camera generates a low-resolution confidence feed, a rehearsal aid for presenters, cached inside the projection controller itself. A closed box under the stage. No network card, no remote access. It records whenever the stage system is powered. 6 weeks ago, Marcus said, the night of the storm, somebody had the stage system powered late. If anyone rehearsed anything on that stage that night, Victor, testing his sale presentation in an empty ballroom, hours after I went home. The document camera live on the podium. "Can you pull the cache?" Marcus grimaced. "That's the problem. The controller has one output. It plays through the ballroom screen. If the footage exists, the only place on Earth it can be seen is the room Victor owns. My proof, if it existed at all, could only speak through a 10-foot screen in a ballroom that believed I was a criminal, controlled by the man who had built that belief. I would walk back in with nothing in my hands and bet everything on a machine's memory. Victor was waiting in the corridor outside the ballroom. Of course he was. "Daniel, before you do something operatic, hear a number. $500,000. He let it sit. "A settlement tonight. No admissions, no lawsuits. The defamation claim disappears. The divorce resolves quietly, and I will personally guarantee your pension, whole, regardless of the restructuring." He straightened my lapel the way you'd fix a mannequin. "In exchange, withdraw the founder vote. Call the signature business a misunderstanding and find somewhere else to spend your next 20 years. $500,000, more than the payout I'd burned. Safety for me, while 83 pensions went into the shredder behind the wall. Every move he'd made all night was one belief wearing different suits. Cornered people choose money. It had worked on shareholders, in a way on Claire. almost on Marcus. "You keep offering me ways to save myself," I said. "That's how I know you never understood why I stayed." His warmth drained like a tide going out. 2 minutes, he said. "That's what the board will give you. Sentiment runs short after midnight." I took the bronze pin from my pocket. The clasp was broken where Claire's brother had crushed it so it wouldn't seat. I pushed it through my navy lapel anyway and held it in place with my hand, my father's key pressed over my heart, because nothing else would hold it there anymore. Then I opened the ballroom doors. The room I walked into was already ending. Board members sat with the override resolution in front of them. The banquet staff still lined the back wall. Claire sat with her family, the divorce folder in front of her like a place setting. The board chair looked up. "Mr. Mercer, the board is prepared to vote on overriding the founder protection. Do you have anything material to present?" "I need 6 minutes. Victor, at the board's right hand. "He's had all night. 2. 2 minutes. Not enough to explain elevators and calibration offsets, but enough for one question. The one I had carried since Claire said folder instead of page. I didn't address the board. I walked to my wife's table and stood in front of her. "Claire, one fact. Only you can confirm it because only you were standing there. The night of the storm, the folder I signed. Who said it in front of me?" She frowned, wary. "Victor did." "And who took it away afterward?" Silence. I watched her go back there, back to a leaking stairwell 6 weeks ago, an ordinary moment no one told her would ever matter. "His assistant took it," she said slowly. "And then?" She stopped. Something moved behind her eyes. Victor's chair scraped softly as he rose. "Claire," just her name, warm as ever. "Think carefully about what you're about to destroy." Not a threat to anyone else's ears. To hers, a whole contract. The property division, the future she'd served me papers to reach, and every wrong choice she'd made that night stacked behind her. Claire looked at the divorce papers in front of her, then at me. "I don't remember," she said. What I did next was the hardest thing I did all night, harder than the waiver. I didn't beg. I had spent 19 years negotiating with her silences, not this one. "Then the last honest thing between us ends here," I said. I turned back toward the board. Behind me, a room held its breath. Later she told me what finished it. Not guilt. Arithmetic. She had watched me give up $310,000 for strangers' pensions, and watched Victor spend the same night buying witnesses, and she finally ran the numbers on which man had ever lied to her. "He came back with it." Her voice cracked across the ballroom, and I stopped walking. Claire was on her feet. "Victor took the folder from his assistant and brought it back himself. And when he handed it back," she made herself say it, "the blue divider was gone. The folder was thinner." I noticed, and I didn't let myself think about it. Her mother's wine glass stopped halfway. Her brother stared. The board chair leaned forward. Truth, publicly, with her whole future on the table. Too late to save us. Some doors, closed an inch a year for 19 years, don't reopen because the weather turns. But when it cost the most, she said it. Victor didn't blink. The man was good. "This is heartbreaking to watch," he said to the board, sorrow in every syllable. A wife, emotionally exhausted, pressured by the husband she's divorcing, reversing her own sworn statement. No one blames you, Claire, but the board deals in records, not feelings. And then he made the decision that ended him. Enough theater. Marcus, bring the screen down. Display the transaction log, the notarized certification, every timestamp. Let the documents speak. Full transparency so no one leaves with doubts. He demanded the screen. All night, his instinct had been to answer every human moment with a document 10 feet tall. Paper he controlled, people he could purchase. He had rewritten every archive in the building. He had no way of knowing about a closed gray box under the stage, quietly listening the whole time. Marcus caught my eye from the console. I nodded once. Bringing the screen down, Marcus said. The motor hummed. The screen descended behind the ruins of my birthday cake. The same screen that had opened the night by convicting me. The lights dimmed on cue, and instead of Victor's transaction log, the screen filled with a grainy, wide, time-stamped image. This ballroom, 6 weeks earlier, 11:58 p.m. Empty chairs, a work light, and Victor Hale alone on the stage, rehearsing. Victor's voice, tinny through the confidence feed, filled the room where he stood now in the dark. On the recording, he stood at the podium with the folder, pale blue divider visible under the document camera. The whole room watched Victor's hands, 10 feet tall, open my signed work authorization. Watched him slide out the signature page. Watched him seat it behind a new cover sheet titled Facilities Transfer Certification, squaring the corners with a fingertip, twice. Then the audio caught him speaking to someone off-frame. Once Claire confirmed she saw him sign the folder, no one will care which page was on top. No one moved. No cheering, no gasps. Just silence, thick as poured concrete, while 200 people re-watched the entire evening in their heads with the lights on. Then the small sounds began. Board members closing their folders, one by one. A banquet server folded her retention bonus form and set it on a tray of dirty glasses. Claire's mother lowered her eyes and did not raise them. Her brother, the man who had crushed my father's pin, took one slow step away from Victor's table. Nobody in that family was laughing now. Evelyn Brooks remained standing, the way she had been all night, the way I suspect she had been for 23 years. Victor moved fast. Security, that projection controller is Hale Meridian's contracted equipment. Seize it. Marcus, I said, is it copied? Streaming to the board's independent auditor since the first frame, Marcus said, not looking up. And to Covenant Counsel. Ms. Brooks gave me the address 20 minutes ago. While I was refusing $500,000 in a corridor, a quiet man and a 69-year-old woman had built the pipeline. I had recruited one frightened technician. He had come back an army. The board chair rose. The vote to override founder protection is suspended. The vote on the sale is suspended. The certification and this footage go to independent counsel tonight. Evelyn stepped forward with the covenant book open and invoked the full founder protection clause. Here is where my waiver stopped being a sacrifice and became architecture. A founder vote exercised at personal cost binds the employee protections to the property itself. Not to this sale, to any sale. Whatever happened to Harbor Crown now, 83 pensions traveled with the deed. Protected. Permanent. I couldn't get my money back. I had done the welding on that door myself. And Victor's transaction simply died where it stood. No investor touches a deal built on a forged certification now streaming to auditors. His discount had required my name. My name had just cost him everything. He had asked for the screen, his own voice, his own hands, his own belief that documents beat people. The person obsessed with controlling the record was destroyed by the one recording he didn't know existed. Victor Hale left the ballroom the way winter leaves. No confrontation, no applause, just a gradual understanding that he was already gone. His assistant did not walk out with him. Claire found me by the head table, where the divorce papers still lay beside the cake nobody had cut. She looked like she had aged a year in an evening. I suppose I had too. "I told the truth," she said. "Does it change anything?" I owed her the same thing I'd finally learned to give everyone else that night. Not comfort, truth. "It changes what happens to the people you almost helped erase," I said. "It doesn't change what happened to us." She nodded because she already knew. The marriage hadn't died tonight. It had died in increments, an inch a year, two people locking doors from opposite sides and calling it peace. Tonight was just the reading of the will. I opened the folder she had served me at 8 o'clock, took her pen, and signed the divorce papers. Claire watched my hand move across the line, and when I finished, she said quietly, "That one's really yours." "First document tonight that was," I said. Victor Hale was removed before the auditors finished their coffee, and his investors vanished the way money does when the smell changes. Claire resigned, accepted responsibility publicly, and didn't fight the divorce. I respect her for that. I got what truth pays, my name back. The 83 pension files held. Beside our new staff training room, mounted behind glass, hangs a bronze pin shaped like an old key, clasp still broken. The plaque reads, "Founder Room 5. Last week, a technician asked if we should keep the ballroom screen hidden. "No," I said. "Bring it down, test it where everyone can see." Have you ever stayed silent to protect someone? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe.